we put people in graves, but they put these people in elaborate tombs for all families and stuff. So the actual tomb, just even the face of the tomb is bigger than this house. You could stack 3 houses on top of each other, and the tomb would be higher than that. 3-4 houses. They're absolutely unbelievable, and they're all carved, decorated up, and they've all got an entrance, and then you go into that entrance and you're out of the weather, you're out of the elements. And there's all kinds of these in Petra. So literally you could house in Petra, I don't know how many people, but I would think that you could probably put easily anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 people in Petra just like that, and be out of the elements because of it's already there. It exists. It's, it doesn't have lighting, and it doesn't have water and sewer and things like that, but you are out of the elements in these what we would call caves, but they're not caves. They're big areas to where space that they would carve and put their dead people and their whole families and people would all be in these barrier caves. And again, I'm just going off the top of my head here. I wasn't prepared to go into these details, but you can check these things out for yourself, and it's very interesting stuff here. But let's take a look. Maybe Anthony, maybe you'd like to read Acts 19, 23 through 28 for us. That's a series of texts there that might be interesting to take a look at.
19.
Chapter 19 of the book of Acts, starting with 23, and we'll read from verse 23 through 28.
And about that time there arose a great commotion about the way. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, who made silver shrines of Diana, brought no small profit to the craftsmen. He called them together with the workers of similar occupation and said, Men, you know that we have our prosperity by this trade. Moreover, you see and hear that not only at Ephesus, but throughout almost all Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away many people, saying that they are not gods, which are made with hands. So not only is this trade of ours in danger of falling in disrepute, but also be despised and her magnificence destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipped. Now when they heard this, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, Great Diana is of the Ephesians.
And so here you have Paul entering into this arena, this fabulous city, and where they had their culture, traditions, heritage, all centered around these gods. And Paul, not only in this city, but according to the testimony here, throughout all Asia, offended a great deal of people through his preaching. He offended them. He walked right in their midst and told them that their gods were no gods at all. This was a pretty big deal. It affected the people that were making these gods, as recorded here, and it also affected the people living there that put value on these gods. Because here's a guy saying those gods mean nothing. They're nothing. That's offending these people. And it caused anger within them. So it tells us, what does that tell us about Paul's character?
He didn't mind offending a few people to get the word out.
Go ahead.
Wasn't a people pleaser.
He wasn't a people pleaser. He was a God pleaser, and he didn't care about offending people as much as he did getting the truth out. That was more valuable. And that again, Jesus said, I didn't come for peace, but a sword. So here Paul's using that sword. He's rocking some people's cages. He's upsetting them. They get angry. They get mad. Now, what happens if we walk into a situation like that and we see that hostility and we see that commotion and we see 25 people and they're all upset and they're red in the face and they're screaming all at one person? What do we think? We think this is not good. We think whatever this guy did is wrong on his part to upset these people. Anytime you see a commotion and you see hostility, you automatically assume that that's a negative. We perceive it as a negative. Is it always a negative?
No.
It's not always a negative. But we don't like it.
Sometimes
We don't like hostile crowds. We don't like hostile situations. We don't like factions like that. We just don't like it. And we almost always assume that whoever is involved is wrong. Am I right?
That's why the cops have been tough downtown,
You see.
right?
Pardon me?
That's why the cops have been tough downtown.
Yeah.
They probably got some calls.
Yeah, they just perceive it. You know, they just perceive it as error. So when, if Paul was in this situation and the police were to come, who do you think they'd arrest?
Paul,
Right.
We did.
Yeah. So there you have it. And this is applicable to our world and our life. Do you think the average churchman could identify with a hostile crowd like this?
no.
What do you think his attitude would be if he walked in and saw a situation like this?
He's in the wrong place.
Pardon me?
False prophet.
The guy, whoever's talking, is wrong. Doesn't matter if he's speaking the truth or not. For him creating this environment, this hostile environment, he has to be wrong. He has to be in error. I mean, I'd say that probably 95% of all churches, plus 95 above, would perceive that anybody involved in a situation like this was wrong. They're not concerned nowadays about content. They're just concerned about how it's perceived by the general masses. And if the masses get upset and it causes that kind of a factious situation, the guy doing it is wrong. He's in error. And that's the mentality of the churches today. It was never the mentality of God's people. Do we have another case that we can think of similar to this, to where they got really mad like this over somebody talking to them about the truth?
Paul,
Other than Jesus. Stephen. Who said that? Amen. Stephen. Stephen spoke to him, and what did they do? They became enraged, and they took him out and stoned him to death for communicating things to them. And it wasn't his demeanor. I don't think Stephen or Paul was red-faced and puffed up, and you could see the anger of Grant in their eyes. You know what I mean? Grant's a local preacher up in another town. You know, it wasn't that they saw this hostile hatred, anger within the eyes when the guy's preaching. It was the content. It's Paul's content. It's Stephen's content. And that content, that truth content that is in opposition to how they see it, enrages them and provokes them. And that's basically how it works. And here in verse 2, it says, I know your deeds. I know your deeds. How does he know their deeds? How does he know their deeds?
he knows it.
Who knows everything? Pardon me? God knows everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that called an attribute of God?
Yeah.
What is that attribute called?
Omnipotence?
Yes.
What? Omniscience.
Omniscience.
Okay, omnipotent is God's power. Omniscience is God's knowing. Okay, so he knows everything. How does he know everything? Because he's omniscient. One way to say it is because he's God, but if you want to be more precise, the way he knows everything is he's omniscient. What does that mean? He knows the end from the beginning. There's not a sparrow that drops to the ground that he doesn't know. There's not a hair on your head that he doesn't know. That's his omniscience. So when he says that I know your deeds, that is complementary to his attribute, God's attribute of being omniscient. You follow that? Am I right, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, I know your deeds. That's what he's telling them. Who's he telling that to?
The church.
What church?
Ephesus.
Would it apply to us too?